painting with an African style. An artist himself, who is your friend, has also painted it using an African style of the Impressionist and what. So this painting, it is dedicated to you because of your influence to this historical department, and I thank you for that one.
Thank you very much. I happen to know this place, and last February, I think I was there, and I was making a joke to Peter that you created a love garden in front of the history department. I know this place very well. Thank you for the very wonderful and lovely gift. And I'm very happy.
And here are the certificate from the artist, which means that at the appropriate time, the gift can leave the country together with the certificate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So once more, thank you very much for hearing me, and now I welcome him if he has any other comment beside the fact that he has received the gift is forthcoming. Thank you.
Thank you very much. About the opportunity of some intervention since the conference, and I will only repeat one or two things. I do not know how many of you are aware that some years ago, I put all the papers of Ogot together into 2 or 3 volumes. And one of the things we can do is to reprint those volumes and add other prominent scholars. And I'm suggesting that you can initiate the republication of the papers of those who have taught in the department into volumes that others will be reading. My voice is fading. I do apologize. When I come back before the end of the year, I would like to give a lecture on what I call the pre-colonial and the post-colonial, which will return to some of the issues that you have raised. And I want to take up just 2 challenges: the creation of epistemic communities. I think the department, with its regular seminar, can bring in other neighboring places to create these epistemic communities. University of Kenya and many others. There are so many private universities in the country today, many universities in Nairobi itself. And we can create these epistemic communities and begin to use these communities to energize the younger generation. And as I suggested, as we still have with us those elders, I think BA history projects should turn them into archives so that their achievements can be documented. When Peter and myself were organizing another conference on higher education, and I would suggest to him we build an extra day to continue with this conversation. I'm full of gratitude to the university, the Senate, the Vice Chancellor, the management, the faculty, our good friend, the literary scholar who writes on African literature, including the work of Femi Oshofison of Nigeria. I'm grateful to the entire history department, all our colleagues who presented good papers. And I'm grateful to those who come from various places. I want to re-emphasize the point made by the Commissioner of Higher Education, Kebbi State, former Dean and former Head of Department, Madam Fodio, to leveraging on what we have, collaborating at greater level. And I will discuss with him perhaps an initiative of asking our colleagues in Nairobi to come to Sokoto, and we bring our colleagues from Niger. If you look at the map of Africa, if only the map you look at, you tend to think that we're far away, too far away from one another. I'm aware of a project, for instance, retracing the Fulani route from the Senegambia to Central African Republic. The Sultan of Sokoto is part of the funders of that project. And one day, I will ask Bunsa to speak to the Sokoto Niamey project. Sokoto to Niamey is 600 miles. It's shorter than going to Lagos. It's shorter than going to Lagos. And people are not aware of those connections. If you stay on a major road in Nairobi, you see trucks bringing corn from Tanzania, bringing food from Uganda, and the other way around as well. And for those of us who follow the Swahili annual prize in poetry, we see how across borders we've created legacies that we should expand into other disciplines. Not just funding research, but funding our awards. When I was privileged to give the first distinguished lecture at Sokoto State University, I call it the Sokoto Manifesto, advising them to think differently, to begin not to think about Africa-West relations, but Africa-Africa relations. And I developed with my colleagues there, why don't you create Sokoto State, the hub, a regional hub of knowledge? The Vice Chancellor from Niamey attended that conference. If some people have been making a joke about the comment by President Buhari, who said on May 29th he's going back to Daura. He doesn't want to get involved in politics anymore. And if people bother him, he will relocate to Niger, another country, which is actually 10 miles away from his own house. 10 miles away from his house. And many of you are following what is happening in Sudan. I contacted the foreign ministry, warning Nigeria, if you do not stabilize Sudan before it's too late, Nigeria is going to pay the ultimate price for that instability. Those who advised them, the US, 3 days later, they took away all their citizens. The British took away all their citizens. Other countries took away their citizens. So as we engage with the West, we should be careful as to the kind of advice we listen to. In my private letter to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I reminded him about the AU and how it was slow in preventing the fall of Gaddafi. Who paid the price? Arms AK-47 spread across the Sahara. It destabilized Burkina Faso. It destabilized Mali. It destabilized Chad. It destabilized the Niger Republic. So that in the final analysis, preventing the fall of Gaddafi's Libya will have saved more lives. The same scenario is playing out in the Sudan. When they finish with their fighting, all those arms will move westwards into Nigeria, Central African Republic, and Cameroon. All the soldiers who are disbanded, who have no income, they will find as a home Nigeria. Am I saying something new? No. The place we call Darfur, which is in Sudan, is constituted by people mainly from Nigeria and West Africa in its original formation. They were walking on pilgrimage. You can take the old trans-Saharan trade routes to North Africa. You move eastwards to Cairo, the biggest market of the moment, of that time. That same route you can use to go to Saudi Arabia. But there is a west-east route. If you go from the area of Lake Chad, the Kanuri area, the area you call the northeast, is faster to move eastwards instead of northward, instead of moving north. And as you move eastwards, you come across the places we now call South Sudan. When you get there, the resting place is a place we call Darfur. If you still have some money, you continue northwards. Part of the routes created in ancient Egypt, in the linkages with Nubia, that route moves southwards to what we call Ethiopia, the route taken by the Queen of Sheba in the story to visit Solomon. We thought it was a mythical story until DNA established that it is actually real, creating Jewish ethnicity, the Falajas in Ethiopia. On their way back from Saudi Arabia, they get stranded in Darfur, no more money, and they rested there. These links have been there historically, and they can be revived at any moment. Mali brought Islam to my people, the Yoruba people, the Oyo Empire. Mansa Musa's 13th century power extended to the area you call northern Nigeria. People were coming to the area we call southwestern Nigeria as far back as 13th century. Songa Empire extended its connection in terms of traffic to areas you now call Cameroon. All these things can be revived for positive development. So in what Bunsa is saying, in creating this network, we have our ancestors to thank. We have our ancestors' ideas to fall back on. That in actual fact, we are not saying something new, that we are just reviving what has been there, reviving the Bantu migration from the area of Cameroon to Southern Africa, reviving the pilgrimages that connected the savannah to North Africa, reviving missionary enterprises. People tend to forget when they write about Arabs in West Africa, Arabs in East Africa, they tend to forget that there are East African missionaries who also went to North Africa. We have not studied them. There are Yoruba imams in North Africa. There are West African preachers in North Africa. There were Kano missionaries in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia. We tend to focus on what we receive and undermining what we have given away. And part of the project of this, as this conference unfolds, as we do the aftermath of this conference, is the revival of some of these older ideas, their reinforcement, Are they doable? They are doable. But they are not going to be doable by looking for external grants, as important as they are. We have to fall within ourselves, and we have to look at what is possible within ourselves. Regional network is possible without looking for external funding. Nigeria relationship is possible without any funding from anyone. And my last closing statement is to appeal that we return to the foundation of these networks, to the foundation of regionalism. I had teachers from East Africa who called Big Tech was at Ife. Ngugi came to Ife. We had teachers from Tanzania in my department. We had Finn. Finn was my teacher. He came from Ghana. I saw on Zoom a moment ago, Professor Tayo Adeshina, when he was a student at Ife. There's Molira, who was recruited from Kenya, who was teaching East African history. There's an economist who was from Zimbabwe, who called Big Tech was always there, was drinking beer with him. That was his passion. And so these things are possible to be revived. And if you want us to send, Nigeria has Technical Aid Corps, which can send you teachers for free. It was established under the Babangida regime. And the initiator, Professor Akim, that scheme is still there, in which you can ask for free teachers from Nigeria. And there's a technical support group that will fund those teachers. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful that you forgive me for not being there about the ticket. In fact, I was released from the hospital before I go back to join you. I've dodged the bullet. I'm not going to die. And I wish all of you well, and all the blessings, the prayers that you have given to me, I am transferring those blessings and prayers to you. It will be well with you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor, for your wonderful reconstruction of African history. Some of us are relatively young, so we're not really sure about how connected Africa is all the way to the north.